So this all started with Pinterest. Just so many different choices on Pinterest for coming up with design concepts and ideas that suddenly you find yourself going for it. So this is Evan. Evan and his wife came up with this great mantle idea for their fireplace. It's a simple design, really. It's got a top and some mitered corners, and basically, it's just there to cover up some vents and look really cool. So the material for this project actually came from my own house. I think it was used to originally make the foundation for this place. Now because this material is so rough, we're just gonna go ahead and square up some edges. We're gonna go ahead and measure out our top, but we're gonna leave a lot of extra. Next, run the back edge of the top through the joiner to get a nice square edge. Once the top's roughed out, let's move on to the mitered front. We're going to start by scribing a square line on the piece. And for our front piece, we need 48 inches point to point. So what we're going to do is pull off to 48 inches, run the square through it, and then scribe that line. We're going to take a skill saw with a not so good blade and set the bevel to 45 degrees. So fire it up and follow the scribe line with your 45-degree mark on the skill saw's base. And you can also, as you finish the cut, use a carpenter's square so you can keep the alignment. Now that we have our corner miters cut, we're going to go to the table saw and rip to the proper height. That's front and sides. Next, we're going to measure out 2 inches. That's going to account for the width of our trim piece and our front reveal. And now for the actual box here, we're going to actually have 5 3/8 inches, but we need some extra to scribe it to the wall, so we're going to cut it about 8. When working with barnwood, you often run into strange cracks and stuff in the material, so we had to support them with pieces of ply countersunk with screws. Next, we're going to go ahead and make the bottom panel. We wanted it to sit inset about 3/8 of an inch. Next, we're going to make a plywood ledger, countersunk with screws, so that the bottom can mount to it. A really good investment when working with strange or oversized pieces is a band clamp, and I just picked it up and it is amazing. Now we're going to create the trim pieces to go around. We're going to rip to width, in this case 2.5 inches is about right. Then we're going to joint the back side, cut some miters, and there you go. Go ahead and test the fit of your miters, and now it's time to clean it up. So go ahead and disassemble the entire mantle. For cleaning up old barnwood, you're going to need a respirator, a wire brush, a file, and your orbital sander. And what kind of equates to a paint scraper for the side of the house or a barbecue scraper. Grab your orbital sander with about 150 grit on it, and give it some light passes just to knock down the top surface area. This will bring some of the grain to the surface. You're going to want to hit the edges as well. Now onto the finishing touch. Round off any cracks with a file. Before applying any finish, make sure you vacuum all the excess dust. We're going to use a wood conditioner to make this grain really pop. Now wood conditioner is like a pre-stain, so we originally intended to use a mild brown stain, but we applied wood conditioner and it just looked amazing. Next, you're going to want to take an old crappy card scraper and go ahead and just touch up the grain. The finish on this project is a wipe-on poly from Minwax. It's a clear satin, so it shouldn't pop out too much. Apply a liberal coat and let it dry. The satin looks wet, but it ends up drying nice and flat. So we're going to take a scrap piece of plywood just to build the mantle upside down. Take the front edge and the sides and align them kind of roughly with the front edge. We're going to use Titebond for the assembly. Go ahead and put a bead of glue on each miter. I'm going to use my 18 gauge nail gun with 1 1/4 inch brads to nail the corners together. Apply another bead of glue on the underside of the mantle. This is that ledger I talked about earlier, so we're going to go ahead and put the bottom in, and we're going to pin that in place as well. So to support the top, we ended up making a plywood L bracket. To do that, just go ahead and rip some ply on the table saw, pin them together in an L shape, and countersink a few screws. This is what's going to secure the top to the back side of the front. That makes any sense? Now take the L assembly, countersink some more holes. These are what's going to actually hold everything together. We staggered the holes just to make sure that we wouldn't open up any cracks. Apply a boatload of glue to this and go ahead and stick it in place. Before you start screwing the L support in place, you want to check your reveal to make sure everything lines up. We're looking at roughly 1 3/4 from the face to the outside edge of the top. Now that everything's lined up, go ahead and throw some wood screws in. Once the front's secured to the top, we're going to put our mitered trim pieces in place. Test fit everything, make sure it aligns, and then throw a couple beads of glue on it. A couple brad nails and you're good to go. This material is less than perfect, so some of the miters didn't close up all the way, but that's okay. Take a file or some sandpaper and end up just rounding over the edges. You can also take a dark stainable wood putty and fill in some of the gaps. Apply a little bit of stain to match and let it dry. We're going to come back with a couple more coats of the satin finish. It's a lot easier to finish it while it's here on the table, so go ahead and put on as many coats as you need. Now it's time to do the installation. You can see the vents that we were actually trying to cover here. So I went ahead and removed those and drew a level line with a bunch of blue tape. Always take your time and make sure everything aligns properly. We probably spent an hour and a half scribing this thing to the jagged rock face, and we got it as close as we dare get it. All in all, this turned out really good. The barnwood matches their fireplace perfectly. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe for more videos.